Today we're going to discuss in short what permissions would be needed to execute a Lambda function. So we'll go ahead and just get into it and take a look at the question for today. I'm going to go ahead and read it off real quick. We have a developer that is building a new application that transforms text files to PDF files. A separate application writes the text files to source Amazon S3 bucket. The new application must read the files as they arrive in S3 and must convert the files to PDF files by using an AWS Lambda function. The developer has written an IAM policy to allow access to the S3 and Amazon CloudWatch logs. What should the developer do to ensure that Lambda function has the correct permissions? Now, if you want to think about this, just take a second here. You may notice that AWS does this a lot with their exam questions. There's a lot of details in the structure, in the solution that they're looking to provide here. Do you really need all these details? I want you to question that when we look at the possible answers here. So A is to create a Lambda execution role by using AWS IAM and attach the IAM policy to the role. Then you assign the Lambda execution role to the Lambda function. B is that you create a Lambda execution user by using IAM and attach the IAM policy to the user. Then assign the Lambda execution user to the Lambda function. C, you would create a Lambda execution role by using the IAM and attach the IAM policy to the role. Then you store an IAM role as an environment variable in the Lambda function. And the last option is to create a Lambda execution user by using IAM and attach the policy to the user. Finally, you store the IAM credentials as environment variables in the Lambda function. So you'll see here with the answers that we have available, there's a lot of details that are in the question that have no application to what we're actually looking to answer. This is something you'll need to keep in mind when you're looking through the exam questions. They may be providing a lot of details that have nothing to do with the actual solution that they're asking for. So with that in mind, let's look at the correct answer for this question. So the correct answer is A. And we'll go over the reason why in just a second here. What I want to call out here are very specific items in the possible solutions to this question. You'll notice that I've underlined the words role user for IAM permissions, and then for the Lambda, the execution role, execution user, and environmental variables. We didn't see why these matter here. So let's take a look at the possible answers or why these are right or wrong. So if we look at the questions, and the reason I've highlighted them is you can boil down to the answers being either an IAM role plus an execution role, an IAM user plus an execution user, a role plus an environment variable, or a user plus environment variable. So let's see which of these options makes sense here. To know that, first we have to compare IAM roles versus users. And most of the time you would want to use an IAM role where you can, and less of the time would you want to use a user. Here are some specific reasons why you may want to do that. So roles are more secure. They don't provide permanent credentials. There's no passwords or access keys. You assume roles for a short period of time, only what's needed to complete the action. Roles are more flexible and they're easier to manage. You can manage them from the IAM console very easy. When given the option, you want to choose a role versus a user. So we know the first part of those questions here, we only want the ones that be talking about roles. So the second part is talking about how we run Lambda executions with permissions. So the possible solutions talked about using execution versus environment variables. This one should be pretty easy, that Lambda execution roles is what you would always use. Environment variables doesn't achieve this, what we're looking for. So when we were looking about the possible solutions, we would want the one that's using IAM roles that also assumes the execution role. For the short lab, I just want to point out where you would see that inside of your Lambda functions. You would see here on the screen that you're looking at the role name inside the execution parameter. So that's everything about today. Today's was short and simple. If you have any comments, let us know below.